The world of Runeterra might be one of the most fascinating and intricate fantasy settings in modern gaming. While League of Legends is commonly associated with its wildly popular competitive scene, Riot Games have been taking great strides in recent years to flesh out their world and the characters that reside within, even going so far as to reboot the entire story in 2015. While this push for a deeper narrative has been widely appreciated by the game's lore community, the results have been controversial at times. With a retconned world came the need to retcon characters. Riot has made a substantial effort in the last few years to reimagine the backstories of League's iconic champions to fit them into the new lore, but not every change has been met with positive feedback. Let's face it, no writer is perfect and hindsight is 2020, so a number of characters throughout the years have been left with less than stellar backstories compared to most of the roster. Still, it is my firm belief that criticism should always be supplemented with suggestions and feedback for improvement, which is what we're here to discuss today. Hello and welcome to Runeterra Rewrites, a series in which I'll be offering my own takes on League's most controversial stories and champions. My aim is simple, to propose alternative versions of these stories that better match the characters' themes and concepts, without needing to alter anything regarding their in-game designs or voice lines. With all that being said, please sit back, relax, and let us begin, shall we? Though many think him nothing more than a beast, Warwick still faintly recalls a time in which he was something, or rather, someone else. Most of these memories are hazy, like a dream, and Warwick often questions whether or not they're anything more than that. However, there is one thing Warwick knows for certain. Nothing excites him more than the smell of blood, the taste of fear, and the thrill of the hunt. Before his transformation, Warwick was a vicious gangster known to many as the Wolf of the Lanes. In a time before the Undercity had truly made a name for itself as a Zon, he brought many vicious criminals to heel. It was only when he and a close friend came to blows that Warwick chose to leave that life behind and begin anew under a different name. For a time, he helped to keep an uneasy peace between the Undercity and Piltover, even taking it upon himself to look after a group of orphans who lost their parents to enforcer brutality. However, Warwick could never truly escape his past, and the friend he'd left for dead soon returned for revenge. In the end, Warwick gave his life in a desperate bid to save the children he'd taken under his care. But death would not be the end for him. To his surprise and confusion, Warwick woke from what should have been an eternal rest to find himself strapped to an operating table. Tubes and strange machines were pumping his body full of unusual chemicals, and Warwick's body burned with an unbearable agony. This, he soon discovered, was the laboratory of Singed, a mad alchemist who had saved Warwick from the brink of death to serve as a test subject. Singed had recently returned from Ionia, where Noxus had employed his services to build horrifying chemical weapons in their campaign. While abroad, Singed had learned of the vastayan, strange creatures who possessed both animal and human characteristics. As payment for his services, Singed asked the Noxian army to help him capture a few specimens for study, though Singed had made the mistake of failing to clarify that he needed these specimens alive. Regardless, Singed was resolved to make do with what he could get, and the vastayan corpses still managed to provide valuable data. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough. Singed needed a live test subject, and if he couldn't capture one, the scientist was content to make one. Judging Warwick's body to be suitable for the task, he'd begun infusing the former gangster with vastayan blood, as well as a myriad of other chemicals. Though Warwick howled and pleaded, the agony was unending, even as he felt his body twist and convulse in all manner of unnatural ways. Eventually, after weeks, or perhaps even months of brutal testing, Warwick fell limp, and his vitals stopped. Dejected, Singed moved his experiment to storage for study at a later date. But once again, death would elude Warwick. When next he woke, Warwick was no longer a man. He had taken on the likeness of a wolf, and his mind was overcome with only one thought: kill. Breaking free of his confinement, Warwick tore the lab to shreds in search of the man who had tormented him. But Singed was nowhere to be found. In a rage, Warwick came crashing out into the sumps of Zaun, driven by pure bloodlust. By the time he finally managed to regain some semblance of sense, a trail of bodies was behind him, and Warwick found himself struggling to recall anything before his gruesome transformation. For a time, the monster merely roamed and hunted in the depths of Zaun, but each day brought back more and more hazy flashes of his past. He recalled a girl, fire, a man with a strange eye. Warwick tried to ignore these memories at first, but soon they became too much. He knew that he had a life before this, another name, and someone who was important to him. More than that, he knew that it had all been taken away by a man named Singed. Now, Warwick prowls the streets of Zaun, driven by his conflicting natures. The beast wants only to hunt, while what remains of the man desperately seeks out any clue about his past. Both sides agree on one thing, however. They must find the one responsible for it all, Singed, and enact a bloody vengeance.